Hi there, I'm Aileen Miracle, and I am so excited to present a session to you about upper elementary songs, activities, and projects. These are my favorite that I used in the upper elementary music classroom, and I'm excited to share that with you as part of the Music Room Meetup. All right, so first a little bit about me. I know that throughout the summit I have talked and have presented other sessions, but in case it's your first time watching one of my sessions, I'm Aileen Miracle. So excited to be here. And a little bit about me. I have 24 years of teaching experience in the elementary music classroom, and now I'm in my second year as a Unified Arts Curriculum Supervisor for Olentangy Schools, which is the district that I taught for many years in previous to having this position. Over the course of my career, I have taught K-7 general music, 3-5 choir, and 4th and 5th grade strings. And I've also taught 5th grade beginning band. I received my Bachelor of Music Education from Central Michigan University and my Master of Music Education from Capital University, where I was able to finish my Kodai certificate at the Kodai Institute in Hungary. In 2016, I was awarded Teacher of the Year at Cheshire Elementary. My blog is at aileensmusicroom.com, formerly Mrs. Miracle's Music Room. I have a podcast called The Music Room, and I present music education workshops across the nation and around the world. And a little bit about my family. My daughter, Jenna, in the back there, she's 20 years old, and she is now a junior at Ohio University. She plays the flute, guitar, and ukulele, loves music. And then my 12-year-old Macy loves to Irish dance. And I also wanted to show you my pets. So Sherlock is on top there. He's a mini schnauzer. And Emma is our cat that we've had for quite a while. Love them both. All right, so a little bit about my background with upper elementary. My first couple years of teaching upper elementary, this is going to date me a little bit, but it's way back in 1999, and I didn't totally know what I was doing. That's okay. I learned, right? I realized that upper elementary students, and I actually taught K-6 at the time. So my like 5th and 6th grade students, but especially at that point, my 6th grade students really were struggling with singing. They were struggling with finding meaning in their music making and in music class. So it took me a while to kind of find my way with upper elementary. But I will say that my last few years in the classroom, I felt so much more successful by that point in teaching upper elementary. So that's what I would love to share with you today. All right, so first let's start with, why is teaching upper elementary music so difficult? First, I would say, and I'm sure that a lot of you will have this experience, that they're often hesitant to sing. This will especially apply to you if you're going into a situation in which you're like taking over for, you're in a brand new role, and maybe the teacher before you didn't have them sing very much. So then if you ask them to sing, you're kind of hitting a brick wall. And at that point, it's just, they're really self-conscious, which brings me to my next point. They're self-conscious. So they're self-conscious about singing. They're self-conscious about playing instruments. They're self-conscious about, offering ideas. It's just that age can be difficult. They really want autonomy and agency. They want to be able to choose what they're doing. And they need a challenge because, in students in grades 4 through 6, even if they're working on those basic musical concepts, which we'll talk about that in a minute, they still need a challenge. So it's kind of this hard dichotomy of, wanting to meet them where they are musically, which might be at a more basic level, but they still need a challenge with what you're teaching them. So what do I think the solution for all of this is? I think finding the right literature, which we will dive into today, really does help with their hesitation to sing, with them being self-conscious, with that buy-in piece. And also having engaging games can really help with having them sing. Giving them activities where they have choice and ownership really helps. And of course, activities with challenge so that they are met where they are. All right, so just an overview of what we'll be going over in this workshop. First, we're going to talk about sequence and where your students are with the musical concepts like I just alluded to. Then I'm going to teach you some of my favorite songs. We'll get into some of my favorite activities and some of my favorite projects, and then we'll have a little bit of time for reflection. All right, let's get started. All right, so we're going to start with sequence. meaning where are you at with your upper elementary music students? What concepts do they know? So maybe you're in what we call an older beginner situation. So the idea of students who are older beginners are these are students usually in grades 4 through 6 who are learning more basic concepts. So the reason I have like a heart GIF on the screen right now is maybe your students were actually never taught steady beat, which is something we usually start with in kindergarten, right? But maybe they just don't have that experience of learning steady beat. So maybe you're starting with let's feel the beat. Let's understand what rhythm is before you can even introduce something like ta and tt or quarter notes and eighth notes, right? And in this case, you're probably, instead of starting with so mi, if that's where your sequence begins, you're starting with mi re do, maybe because so mi might sound a little babyish, right? We don't want that to happen. So we're really thoughtfully thinking through the concepts that they need to learn and figuring out the proper literature, the just right literature that will work for them in this situation. Or maybe your students are getting there. So the idea here is they're learning concepts, but maybe they're a grade level or two behind. And I say behind because this will depend on what your state standards are, or maybe you're following the national standards, or whatever standards you're following, whatever sequence you're following. This is going to, first of all, depend on that. And second of all, maybe you're behind not because, you just couldn't get them there. It could just be because this is your first or second year with them. Maybe it's because something else happened with the curriculum where you just couldn't quite get them there. And maybe it is, they do need more time with the concepts. And I think we are lucky in the music world where if we do feel like students need more time with a concept before we move on, we typically can take that time, right? We don't have a standardized test hanging over our heads. So if we need to take more time, we do. So maybe you're at that point of getting there, or maybe your students are on track. So they're learning grade level concepts depending on what your standards are and your sequence in your district. Maybe your students are right there. What I want to say about all of that, though, is wherever you are is totally okay. There should be no shame about this. I have been in all three situations. I've had older beginners, I've been in a getting there type situation, and I have been on track. I would say for most of my career, I was in the getting there category, right? Because, teaching after COVID and trying to get students caught up there, or just being in a new teaching situation, or just realizing that the students needed a little bit more time. But wherever you are, totally okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to some songs, and I will refer back to that sequence piece as I teach you some of these songs. And some of them you might know, and some of them you might not. So let's see. These are some of my favorite songs for upper elementary. All right, so the first one is an African American folk song called Big Fat Biscuit. So I'm going to sing it for you, and then I will explain the game. And the game is really one of the reasons why why they love the song so much. So the song goes like this. Big fat biscuit, choopy-loo, just from the oven, choopy-loo. Boy, jump over yonder, choopy-loo. And I do apologize. I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold right now. So if my voice cuts out a little bit, that's fine. So that's the way the song goes. I've heard of some people say choobiloo. I've heard others say shoobiloo. I had a speech impediment when I was a kid where I mixed up my CHs and my SHs. So I'm just going to put that out there. I could be pronouncing it wrong. But either way, that's the way the song goes. And the reason kids love this is for the game, you choose 3 students. And the 3 students you might have, I often would put like painter's tape on the ground because it's easy to pull up off the ground. And that way that was like a good visual for this is where our heels are. Or like if you have a carpet in your room that is just like a rug, where there's also linoleum, then you could have them put their heels to the edge of the rug or whatever, however you want to do this. So they stand all with their heels to the same line. And then on the first choo-be-loo, the first kid does a standing long jump with both feet together. On the second, choo-be-loo, second kid. On the third kid. And then at the end, you see who has jumped the furthest, judging by the back of their heels and making sure that they have used both feet to jump. And so let's say a student named Tanya wins. So Tanya goes back to, she plays again, and we call two more kids in to challenge Tanya, right? Then we play again. Maybe Tanya loses, and this time Brett wins. And so the Brett stays in, right? And so on. So they really love like that athletic challenge of it. And sometimes the students who jump the furthest are kind of a surprise. They're not necessarily always like the tallest kids. And then they have like this newfound talent that they didn't realize they had. It's just super, super fun. So I just explained the game there, which they love. And then for concepts, there's quite a few in this. This is a really versatile song. It depends on what part of the song you're using. So you could use it for Lola because you have do, la, do. You could use it for syncopa because you have just from the oven, right? And then you can also use it for low so because there's that boy, jump over, right? And then with our older beginners, if that's where your students are, then you could use it for do, re, and mi with the do, do, re, mi at the beginning. So many ways to use this song. All right, moving on to another one of my favorites. This song is called Chumbara. So I am going to sing it for you, but I'm also going to try to do the motions so that you can see what I'm doing. Usually you would put your hands on your lap as you do this, but just so that you can see what I'm doing, I'll have my hands up here, pretending like my lap is right here. All right, so the song goes like this. Chumbara, 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 chum, 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 chumbara, 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 chum, 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 chum. Hey! All right, so this, I guess, is really more of a activity than it is a game because there's not a student that gets out, but the motions go like this. So like I said, pretend like your hands are on your lap. And you're going to go pat, pat on your own lap. And I'm mirroring, so they're going to go to their right. I'm actually going to my left. So it's pat, pat, right, right, pat, pat, left, left, pat, pat, right, right, pat, cross, pat. And for both, which you can't really see that I'm moving my hands and tapping the neighbors. So the student to each side of me, I'm going to tap their knees and then pat, pat, right, right, pat, pat, left, left, pat, pat, right, right, pat, cross, pat, hey, like that. All right, so if you can try to do that with me as you're watching me, I'll sing it again. Feel free to join along and then do the motions with me. Chumbara, 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 chum, 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 chumbara, 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 chum, 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 chum. Hey! All right, super fun. And there are other verses like Chowperski, Chowperski, and you keep going through it with, and then it's chow, 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 right? And then Fido Lee is another one. Fido Lee, Fido Lee, so Fido Lee. And I should tell you that the songs that I'm going over in this session, regardless of whether or not you have the All Access Pass, the songs are below. So make sure to download the songs so that you can use them. And something else that I've had students do in upper elementary after just doing the activity, and you can get faster and faster, which of course is part of, there we go with challenge, right? You're offering them a challenge by having them go faster and faster. Another way to do this, I've had students make up nonsense 3-syllable words, and I say nonsense because they struggle with that. So even when I'm like, okay, let's come up with a nonsense word, then they're like Chewbacca. And I'm like, well, not exactly nonsense. Like that's a character. Okay. So you could do nonsense or you could just do regular words. Let's say they do like cheeseburger, cheeseburger, whatever, right? You do have to think through the word. So let's say a student gives a suggestion. You do have to think through the word to make sure that the first syllable isn't something that's not okay to repeat over and over again. So you just have to like do a little, think through the word before actually singing the song. But super fun. And something else that I've had students do after they're familiar with the activity as a whole group is I've had them work in small groups, maybe like small groups of like 4 or 5, and they just sit in a circle with their small group of 4 or 5, and they each take turns coming up with different 3 syllable words and then trying it out. So that's just a fun way to, again, give them that ownership and autonomy. All right, so concepts for this, we hear major scale, obviously, right? Uses do through high do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So if they already know fa and you're teaching them ti, this would be a good one or a good one to teach major scale. It also has a tanti or dotted quarter eighth. You could also use it for first and second endings. The way you see it on the screen is not written with first and second endings, but it could be written with first and second endings with the repeat sign happening at the end of the second system here, right? And then the first and second ending after that. And it's also great for study beat with your older beginners, so that those students who are needing those basic concepts, because the whole time we're keeping the beat, right? So that's a great one for study beat as well. All right, we're going to move on to another one of my favorites, and that is Skin and Bones. You could do this around Halloween time. That it is like a popular song to do around Halloween, or you could really do it any time of the year. Or you could start at Halloween and just continue it. The kids don't really seem to care if it's not Halloween and you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and sing this one for you. All right, before I sing it, I should tell you that this is a call response song. So the part that I would sing would be, there was an old woman, all skin and bones. And then the students would sing, ooh. So I'll go ahead and sing it for you so you get the idea of the whole song. There was an old woman, all skin and bones. Ooh. She lived down by the old graveyard. Ooh. One night she thought she'd take a walk. Ooh. She walked down by the old graveyard. Ooh. She saw some bones a-layin' around. Ooh. She went to the closet to get a broom. Ooh. She opened the door and boom! So I just used a little, what do you call these? Like a crow sounder, as a boo. But I actually prefer to use the tubano. So I'll often like have the drum in between my legs and just be singing the song. And then at the end I'll hit and they're not expecting it. And you will see some students that kind of jump. But so that's the song. But then the game that I learned from my colleague Jenna years and years ago was that you have 2 students who are the tappers, and everyone else lays down somewhere in the room. So they don't have to be in their seating chart. It's actually better if they're not in their seating chart. They're just laying down somewhere in the room, and we turn off the lights. Or at least, like when you turn off the lights, if your room goes completely dark, then maybe you have like one light on, but you dim the light somehow. And then the tappers, I choose while we're singing. So we all close our eyes, I sing the song, they sing the response, and then I tap 2 students. And if they feel that I'm tapping their shoulder, then they run inside. I had a storage room that they could go into that was like within eyesight of the rest of the room. If you don't have something like that, then they could go out into the hallway or into an adjoining room, whatever you have. So they are out of sight. And then once the song is over, then everyone opens their eyes and they try to figure out who is missing. And since they're spread randomly throughout the room, it's not always super easy to figure that out. And then, if they call out Gina, for example, then I'll say, Gina, are you in there? And then Gina comes out, right? And then those 2 students come out and then they become the tappers. So each one of them, let's say it's Gina and Billy. So Gina and Billy go ahead and tap one person each so that those 2 new people then go into the storage closet and so on. Super fun game. They absolutely love it. And then there's the game right there. And then it's great for 6/8. And it has that, outer anacrusis. It's also great for Lola because it starts with Lola to Do. And then obviously call response. And just I feel like getting them up into their head voice, the ooh, is so beautiful to get them up into their head voice. So it's a really good song to get them singing. And if they aren't singing and they want to play the game, then you can say, we're only going to play the game if you're singing. All right, on to Oboe She Notten Totten. I'm going to play a YouTube video. This is actually on my YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and search Oboe She Notten Totten, you'll find it. But this is my level 1 Kodai students playing Oboe She Notten Totten. And Lorena Code Boyle, who presented the awesome session about hip hop and pop, is in the navy blue cardigan right there. I just realized she's in the video. All right, so I'm going to play this so you can see how this song and the game goes. All right, so super fun. This is what the notation looks like. So it's great for do pentatonic because it's all sol, la, mi, re, do. It's great for syncopa. It also works for steady beat for your students who are older beginners. And for your students who are older beginners, it also works for singing voice versus speaking voice because, as we know, that can be tricky because so many times adults will say like, oh, remember that song? And then, they start speaking a chant, or remember, oh, let's sing. And then they'll start chanting. So, that difference between singing and speaking can be tricky. So this is a good song to address that. All right, so those were some of my favorite songs for upper elementary. Now we're going to dive into some of my favorite activities. The first one is poison. Probably a lot of you are familiar with poison, but the idea of poison is that you have a poison pattern up on the board. So for example, like you see on the screen here, maybe the poison pattern is cinco pa ti ti ta, or maybe you call cinco pa, maybe you call it ti ta ti. So then in that case, it would be ti ta ti 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 ta, whatever you call it. So you have that on the board and you clap a bunch of patterns and they have to be your echo unless you clap the poison pattern. Now the easiest way to play this is saying the rhythm syllables as you clap. For example, I could go cinco pa two, and then everyone would have to echo that. Cinco pa, and they would have to echo that, and then cinco pa ti pa. Now, if you clap the poison pattern, you could have them just not clap it back. Another adaptation that I added that I saw someone else do is when they hear the poison pattern, they have to go like this. The tricky thing is they don't want, especially if you're doing like teacher against class. So there's a couple different ways to do that there too. If you do teacher against class, then if anyone in the class echoes when they're not supposed to, when it's a poison pattern, then you get a point. And if nobody echoes, they get a point. You could also do it where individual students sit down if they mess up. But if you are doing teacher against class, then sometimes the students will go, duh! They'll kind of go like this so that nobody claps when it's the poison pattern. So you kind of have to tell them you're not really allowed to do that. So that's the easiest way to play. And then one level up would be you're just clapping, for example. And they have to be able to hear what the pattern is and know whether or not it is the poison pattern. So you can do this with rhythm, like you see on the board here. You could also do this with melody. So you could have, let's say you're working on mi, re, do with them. You could have the poison pattern is mi, re, do, and you have it up on the board. And if again, the easiest way to do it would be you singing like do, do, re, mi, and they sing it. Mi, mi, re, do, 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 and they sing it. And then if you sing mi, re, do, they know it's a poison pattern and they don't sing it back. And level 2 for melodic poison would be you play it on the recorder. So that you could give a starting pitch like, I'm going to start on do, and then you play a pattern and they have to sing it back from the recorder. So it's really great for audiation. So, and we talked before about one of the challenges with upper elementary being that they need a challenge. So this is a great way to give challenge. Wherever they are in concepts, you are giving them a challenge, and students will often beg to play this. They really, really love it. So yeah, rhythm or melody, you can speak, you can clap, you could even play the rhythm patterns. So like instead of clapping, you could take an instrument like this and do, or you could also play it on the recorder, like all on one note, do, 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 kind of thing. For melody, you can sing the solfa. You could loo it like loo, 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 and they have to sing it back, or you could play the recorder. Now, if you want the really cute visuals that you see here, I do have a couple poison sets that will be available with the Music Teacher Toolkit with that All Access Pass. You could also write on the board what the pattern is and just keep adding to it. But this is just a cute way to display the visual. All right, so next we have Mindful Minute. This can be a great way to start a class and get students calm and focused. So a problem that I didn't talk about at the beginning is, upper elementary students, on top of being self-conscious, can have, they're starting to go through puberty and they're having to, deal with a lot of emotions and hormones and all sorts of fun stuff, right? We all remember that time so fondly, right? So something like a mindful minute can help regulate their emotions. And this could be something that you just do at the beginning of class. I didn't necessarily put it into every single lesson, but like every few lessons I would put in a mindful minute. And I will say, we'll watch it in a minute here so you can see what it looks like. I will say that the first time I did it, students were there were several students who were giggling and, kind of unsure as why are you showing us this, right? And then the more we did it, the more used to it they got and the more appreciative they were. I would then have students ask for the mindful minute, especially if students are coming to you right after recess. It can just be a good way to kind of reset. All right, so I will play this particular video is by the Mindfulness Teacher. But if you go to YouTube and you search Mindful Minute Kids, then you will find several. Like Go Noodle, for example, also has several mindful minutes.
Mindful looking. This activity will enhance your observation skills and make you better at focusing. These are great skills for artists and will help you to focus in class. You need to sit comfortably facing the screen. You can sit in your chair or on the carpet, whichever your teacher prefers. The screen is gradually going to fill with bubbles of all different types. Some of them will be big, some small, some will be orange, some blue, some may be multicolored. I want you to look at the yellow bubble. Only the yellow bubble. Follow it wherever it goes with your eyes. Don't be tempted to look at any other bubble. Stay with the yellow one. Pay close attention to it. Now look at the blue bubble. Follow it closely. Keep looking. Some of them might start to pop to try and distract you, but don't let them. Now switch to the green one. Pay attention to it. This means only think about this one thing. Keep track of it, even if it goes behind another bubble. Now look for the smallest bubble. Your eyes will have to scan over the whole screen to spot it. Don't shout out which one it is. Stay silent. Now pay attention to the fastest bubble. Well done. Now you've exercised your focusing skills, you can put these into practice in your lessons.
All right, so as you can see, it can be a really great way to, I don't know if you felt yourself kind of like calm down. I was feeling a little bit stressed out earlier today, and I already feel calmer just from watching that video. So definitely some value there. All right, another one of my favorite activities is the cup game, which many of you are probably familiar with this because this got really popular after Pitch Perfect. But I have been doing it for years, like I said, since 1999, since I student taught. And the way that I learned the cup game is a little bit different than the way I've seen other people do it. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the way I learned the cup game. So I'm going to put a cup like right, I don't know, maybe I'll go like this. You can see a little bit better. There we go. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. So a lot of times when I've seen the cup game, I've seen people do clap, clap, tap on the cup like that. Mine is a little bit different. Mine goes like this. Clap, clap, conga drum, pick it up. Move that cup and don't mess up. And I don't know if you could see everything I was doing there, but what I did is at the beginning, I did clap, clap, conga drum. So first I actually teach them the chant before even putting cups in front of them. And then when I do put cups in front of them, we're sitting in rows. That way I can mirror. So if they're supposed to do something with their left hand, I do it with my right and vice versa. And then once they know it well, then we go to a circle. So we do clap, clap, conga drum, pick. And then for it, I'm going to use my left hand, but they would be using their right. It up. So I teach it line by line in slow motion, right? So let's say they just know clap, clap, conga drum, pick it up. Then for move that cup, this is the trickiest part. For move, they're going to clap, move. For that, they're going to take their right hand over to the left hand side of the cup, that, and then for cup, they hit their hand over it. So I'll just do that part again. So it's move that cup. For and, they hit it on the ground. And for don't, they put the cup in their left hand. They switch it. Don't. For mess, they're going to hit the ground, mess, and then they put the cup back in front of them. I'll just start from move. So we have move that cup and don't mess up. So feel free to go grab a plastic cup from your cabinet. So you can do this with me if you're not familiar with this, but I'll do it from the beginning and still pretty slowly. So it's clap, clap, conga drum, pick it up, move that cup and don't mess up. Okay, so you could teach this just as a activity where they're doing the chant and doing the cup game. But I like to get to a point where we're in a circle, and after move that cup and don't mess up, instead of putting the cup in front of them, they're actually going to pass it. In their case, they would pass it to the right, but I'm showing them to the left because I'm mirroring. So they pass it and then they get a new cup from their neighbor, and it keeps going around and around like that. I like to do this with I've Been to Harlem. So I'm going to show you what that looks like with I've Been to Harlem. And the version of I've Been to Harlem that I use is a little bit different than one you might be familiar with. There is one that's like drink all the brandy wine and turn the glasses over. And I know there's some history there. You can talk about how sailors on a boat would drink brandy wine because it didn't go bad, et cetera, et cetera. I was never comfortable with teaching it like that. So I sing, drink what you have to drink and turn the glasses over. You do you, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you think will work for your community. But I'll show you what it looks like with I've Been to Harlem. So after they do the chant and the cup game, then we get to a point where they're doing the cup game without saying anything. So they're saying the chant in their head like this. And so on, right? And then we get to a point where we're singing like this. I've been to Harlem, I've been to Dover, I've traveled this wide world all over, over, 3 times over. Drink what you have to drink and turn the glasses over. And so on, right? So you could start with they're just putting it in front of them each time, and then you could move on to they're passing it, which is a really great way to reinforce right and lefts. Again, we have that challenge, right? We talked about providing upper elementary students with that challenge. This is perfect. Because some students will be ready to go faster and faster and faster. So that and this is over several lessons, right? Because you really want to build those skills and take time to kind of work up to this. But after they're very familiar with this, then, and we're in a circle, let's say we're doing it with I've Been to Harlem. You could also use any recording in 4/4. I know I used to do a cup game with like Scott Joplin's Maple Leaf Rag. That was like slightly different than this, but I think actually this one does work as well. So any recording in 4/4 also works. I've also heard it or seen it used with like In the Hall of the Mountain King, because it starts off slow and gets faster and faster. So that's kind of a fun challenge too. But anyway, so when they're in a circle, we start off slow, singing, and do it. And then if they mess up, then at the end of the song, we always want to make sure it's the end of the song, not the middle of the song. Then they have to take their cup and leave the circle. And it's just kind of like Scout's honor, right? And then we get faster and faster. And then those students who are really good at it, they shine and they're super excited because they're able to have that challenge that's appropriate for them. So this has always been a hit with my upper elementary students. And like I said, it's in Pitch Perfect. I do think the song, which is the title of it, is escaping me right now, but it does talk about whiskey maybe. So you could maybe find a clean version of that and do it with that song. Or you could even say, like, maybe if some of you have seen Pitch Perfect, then you're familiar with this and not necessarily do the song. But yeah, super fun challenge for them. All right, we're going to move on to some of my favorite projects that work well for upper elementary. You can think of these as units as well, projects or units. All right, so you could do an ukulele project or unit with your students. I have done ukulele for years and I find that students really love it. What I really like about ukulele is, as you can tell maybe from my hands, I have small hands. I can barely reach an octave on a piano. Like, it's a stretch to reach an octave. So to play guitar for me, even when I have like a student-sized guitar, it's just difficult for me. So ukulele was easier for me to play and therefore easier for me to teach. But then you think about upper elementary students, their hands, I mean, maybe in some cases are bigger than mine, but are probably similar to mine. So it's just easier for them to play. So with a unit or a project for ukulele, you could have them transfer their solfege skills to the ukulele and have them like finger, pluck the melody, let's say even hot cross buns. You could have them learn chords, and you could have them play along with songs. So these could be play along songs of like pop songs on the radio. There are so many on YouTube that are really great. And if you have the All Access Pass, I will have a link page that has some of my favorite playlists, and one of them is an ukulele playlist with a bunch of like play alongs that are great. For example, one that I really like is Ho Hey, because it uses, by the Lumineers, I believe, it uses C major and A minor, which are the first two chords that I always taught. So perfect for that. And they really feel like, it's like that relevance piece too. They really feel like, oh, like I'm playing real music because they're playing along with a song that they know. But you could also have them play along with songs that they know, like a song from music class, and then they're accompanying themselves on the ukulele. And again, this speaks to challenge as well too, because this is not super easy, especially for having them singing and playing at the same time, or especially if instead of just strumming like down like this, then you're starting to teach them strumming patterns like down, down, up, or whatever that might be. It, depending on how many ukuleles you have, students could work in pairs or they could work independently. So when I first got ukuleles, I didn't have enough for the entire class to have ukuleles at the same time. So I would just have them pair up, and then the first student would play and kind of help out the student not playing could help out the other player, and then they would switch and so on. And then if you have enough for everyone to play, great, then everybody can play. You can find the ones that I liked to use were the Kala Waterman ukuleles, and those are like in the $40-ish range. I think they're about $40 when I bought them, but they might be up to like $45 now. I can link below this video to a blog post I have, which kind of outlines a little bit more about how I get started with ukuleles. And then, like I talked about that playlist, if you have like a ukulele playlist, then they can self-differentiate. So I used Schoology. That was our learning management system in my school district. So I would put together a playlist for them in Schoology, and I would say for each video what chords were included with each video, and then they could self-differentiate and then choose what challenge they wanted, what challenge was good for them. All right, moving on to another project which I really enjoyed, and that is the playlist project. So the idea of the playlist project is that the first step is I had a Google form and a playlist, again in Schoology, where they would listen to several songs. And these were songs at first that I chose. So they would listen to all of these songs, and I actually had videos that they could, watch the video and listen to the song. And then they would choose their favorite song from the list and respond to it. So in the state of Ohio music standards, there's something about like personal preferences. So this was a good way to address that standard, but also getting students to listen to songs in different genres or pieces of music in different genres, and then respond to it and tell me what they liked, why they liked it, what they liked about it, etc. And then after they worked with a couple of my playlists, then I let them give me songs that they thought were student appropriate that were their favorites. The tricky part about this, and this I will admit is time consuming, is if you do this step where they're giving you student appropriate music, many times it's not appropriate, at least not in my opinion. So you go through all of their choices. What I like to do is I would, put the song on, if you have some kind of streaming service where you don't have to pay for it, that's perfect. So I would listen to the song as I was looking at the lyrics, and the lyrics is usually, that's where I would find something where I thought was not appropriate. But then I would curate a list of songs that I thought, yes, these are appropriate for students in fifth grade or whatever grade you're using. And I would have that playlist. And then after I had the playlist, then they would, choose their favorite from that list and again respond to it, tell me why it was their favorite. And then the next step is I would have students choose like their favorite song, and I would have them from that list, I would have them research that song and that artist. And then they would create morning announcements and presentations that could be played on like our TVs in the hallway or whatever. So this again was time consuming, but they really seemed to enjoy it. So let's say it was like Count on Me by Bruno Mars. Let's say that's the song. Then the students would research the song. They would research Bruno Mars. And this was a nice cross-curricular connection because like I'm in the state of Ohio and the students had access to something called Info Ohio. So they were able to use some resources that maybe they were just using in the classroom or maybe they were using in library, and they would do some research on that song or on that artist. And then they might create a slide. So I had these Google slides where they could like pull in different design elements, and then they could put the title on the screen of Bruno Mars, Count on Me, and then they could say some kind of fun fact about Bruno Mars or about the song. And then I could cue them up on the announcement. So I worked with my principal on this, and the song would be playing as the students came into school. We had something called Music Monday, which was my principal's idea. And then I just tied this idea or this project into it. So the music would play as the kids were coming into school. And then the kids, some of the kids who like chose that as their favorite song would come on the announcements and they would read their fun fact, or they would, today on today's PA, you heard the song Count on Me by Bruno Mars. A fun fact about Bruno Mars is blah, 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 blah. The reason I like the song is blah, 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 blah. Hope you enjoyed it. And it was just like a fun little connection. I had, it was really cute. One of my kindergarten teachers came to me and she's like, I just want to let you know that Music Monday, like my kids love, love, love it. I'm so glad you're doing that. They get so excited. They're like, what's on Music Monday today? And they get so excited. And then they're like dancing in their classroom, which just warmed my heart. Is this extra work? Yes, it is. If you're already doing something like, I also ended up doing like video announcements. Again, lots of extra work, but super fun. But if you're already doing something like that, like you're already helping with morning announcements, you're already helping with video announcements, and this can just be like a nice tie in. But you could even do this without even doing the morning announcement aspect of it. You could just do some kind of research project where the students are researching, songs and artists that they like. All right, and then another project that I really like is Genius Hour. So the idea of Genius Hour is, you might have heard about Genius Hour, kind of like, it actually started off, my understanding is that it started off at Google, where Google was giving its employees like maybe an hour a week or something like that to work on a passion project. And then some things like, if I remember correctly, some things like Google Maps came out of, or Google Earth maybe, came out of Genius Hour because they were giving their employees just to work on something that excited them. So then I heard a few years back, I heard about this idea being adapted to the general ed classroom where students could choose a topic to explore. And actually my own daughter, Macy, did Genius Hour when she was like in third grade, where she was researching horses and learning all about horses. So I heard about this in the general ed classroom and I was like, wow, this would be really cool to use in the music classroom, but like, how can I structure it so it's successful? Because, you have only so much time with them. A lot of you probably once a week, right? And how can this be successful? So I ended up I had like curated topics. I had certain topics they could choose from. In this case, ukulele, keyboard, because I had a bunch of keyboards, coding, music technology. I think I used like GarageBand was one of them for the music technology piece. I might have done guitar as well. So like you just kind of have to think about like what instruments are in your classroom, or what equipment do you have, what technology do you have that students could choose from. So they choose the topic, they create a goal for themselves, and then they research that topic and maybe learn to play a song on the ukulele by themselves, or learn to play a song on the keyboard by themselves, and then they share their findings. So they have time to explore that topic, and then they share what they've learned. And they could share it just as like a share day kind of thing where everybody kind of shares for each other, or you could use some kind of technology to have them share. I have always recommended using Flip or Flipgrid, but I'm super sad. I just read that Flipgrid is like being expired. Like they're not continuing Flipgrid or Flip. So I'm not sure if I'm sure there's some other kind of platform where students could share, if you're not having like a share day, but you're having them share virtually. Even in Schoology or Google Classroom, they could record a video of themselves and just share it that way. So yeah, those are some projects that I really enjoy doing with upper elementary. The Genius Hour, I'm going to put a blog post below this so you can read a little bit more about Genius Hour, but I do have a Genius Hour set and playlist project materials that if you have the All Access Pass, you get those. So if those two projects are like, oh yeah, I would love to try something like that. If you have the All Access Pass, that music teacher toolkit, then you can go ahead and download those materials and hit the ground running with those ideas. All right, and just a little bit of reflection now that we have done several different ideas. So let's reflect a little bit. We talked at the start of the session about difficulties with upper elementary and what makes that age group just a little bit more challenging to work with or to teach. And you might also have difficulties that I didn't even have on the list. So just kind of think about those and then think about how any of those difficulties were addressed with what you've learned today. I know I talked about like the challenging aspect and the autonomy aspect. So just kind of reflect on what was addressed today. All right, in some action steps for you, I would like you to choose one song from today's session that you would like to use in some upcoming lessons. And then an activity. So we had Poison, we had the cup game, we had a few others. So think about which activity you would like to use and then what project you would like to use. So we had the playlist project, we had ukulele, we had Genius Hour. Are there any of those that spoke to you that you would like to try? All right, and keep in mind if you do purchase the Music Teacher Toolkit, then I have some poison sets that I'll be uploading to the Music Teacher Toolkit or that All Access Pass, as well as materials for the playlist project and Genius Hour, my Genius Hour set from my TPT store, and some helpful links as well. And you'll get extended access to all of the videos until the end of this year. So instead of, not being able to watch the sessions after 24 hours, you'll have extended access. Keep in mind that the songs from today are below whether or not you have the Music Teacher Toolkit. All right, so I hope that session was helpful for you as you consider songs, activities, and projects for upper elementary. Thank you so much for coming to today's session and for coming to the Music Room Meetup. If you want to keep connected with me, if you go to Instagram, you can find me at Aileen's_music_room, on TikTok at Aileen's Music Room. As I record this, TikTok is back up and running. So Facebook, my Facebook page is Aileen's Music Room, and I have Twitter on there, but I'm going to be honest, well, it's now called X, and I don't really use it anymore. So, but I think I'm at Aileen Miracle on Twitter or on X. All right, so thanks so much for coming. I hope that was helpful for you, and have a great day.